Right, so hello museum families and welcome to RBCM at Home Kids, a play date through screens across British Columbia and the world. The previous sessions are recorded and you can find them on our Royal BC Museum YouTube page and a playlist for RBCM at Home Kids. We have close to 60 videos there, which is keep you busy for a long time. My name's Chris O'Connor and I'm a learning program developer at the Royal BC Museum. The museum and my home is on the territory of the Lekwungen-speaking people, the Songhees and Esquimalt nations, here in Victoria on Vancouver Island. I'm an uninvited guest on this territory and grateful to live, learn, and raise a family on this land. So May is Asian Heritage Month, an opportunity to learn about the diverse stories and perspectives of Canadians of Asian descent who have contributed in every way imaginable to help communities around Canada thrive. We celebrate historical and current joy and accomplishment while also recognizing historical and current pain and struggle. One part of that painful history is around Japanese internment, the displacement and dispossession of Japanese Canadians during the 1940s. We'll get into what that was today. This was hurtful and harmful for many families. Part of learning history is making sure that that kind of hurt and harm never happens again. This kind of history can be hard to understand and make sense of, so a game can be a good way of doing that. And today we're joined by two University of Victoria students who have done just that as part of the Landscapes of Injustice project, which the Royal BC Museum, the University of Victoria, the Nikkei National Museum and Cultural Center, among others, are helping to co-create. So Natsuki Abe is a fourth-year undergraduate student in the history department, and Jennifer Landrey is a first-year graduate student in creative writing, and both of them are joining us today, and we're so happy to have you both here. So welcome.
Hi everyone. So happy to see you.
Yeah.
Shall I get started?
Yeah. The floor is yours.
Great. I will share my screen. There we go.
Thank you, Chris, for the introduction. So hi, everyone. We are the team behind this Choose Your Own Adventure interactive narrative game, Into the Interior. I'm Jennifer, and I am a narrative developer.
And I'm Natsuki, and I'm the programmer.
So we created this game as a class for the University of Victoria, which means that all of you are going to be just as smart as university students. We want to explore Japanese Canadian internment and dispossession history with you today. But to start, do any of you know about internment? Feel free to pop anything into the chat. Yeah, that's definitely one form of internment. Thank you.
So Jennifer, just because not everyone will be able to see that comment. So the comment is placement. This is Division 10. It's a placement for people like enemy spies by the government.
Yeah, that's definitely one type of internment. So we're going to be going over the next, another type, Japanese Canadian internment history. If you could go to the next slide, Natsuki. So in 1942, during World War II, the Canadian government decided that Japanese Canadians had to leave British Columbia's coast. So this meant that anyone in Vancouver or Victoria or any town close to the ocean had to leave their homes. All of their hard work, building farms and businesses, owning cars and boats and favorite toys, these were all taken away. Once the government had forced Japanese Canadians to leave their homes, they were sent to internment camps that the government decided were just far enough from the ocean. They did this because Japan, a country on the other side of the world, had bombed Pearl Harbor. But Japanese Canadians were Canadian, just like you and me. So this means that Canadian citizens were bullied by their own government, which doesn't really seem fair, does it?
So let's go over some new vocabulary that we'll see in the game. First, Issei. This is the first generation of Japanese Canadians to immigrate from Japan to Canada. For example, my great-grandparents were Issei. Now, Nisei. this is the second generation, and they were the first generation to be born in Canada. So my grandparents, my grandma and grandpa, they were Nisei. Now, the evacuation order. This was the official policy that the Canadian government used in order to remove Japanese Canadians from their homes. And dispossession. Now, dispossession is when someone takes something like your home or personal belonging, and they take that away from you or from someone else. And lastly, internment camp, it's a place where people are detained because the government forcibly removed them from their homes.
So before we begin, let's take a look at a map of Canada. If you look on the left-hand corner, you'll see that the majority of internment camps were located in British Columbia's interior. But before we begin the game, we need to remember that this history took place all across Canada. Although a lot happened in British Columbia, this is every Canadian's history. So it's important to look at the whole country when considering our characters' stories.
Now, a bit about the game. Our characters are a brother and sister who are forced to leave their home in Steveston. We're so excited to share this project with you because every Canadian's history. Now, today's game is all about choices, and that's why we need your help. To play, Jennifer will read out the story, and then when there's a choice to be made, we want you to pick what we want you to pick and put that into the chat. I will click the first answer I see. Now, let's play.
Can I just pause just for a second?
Mm-hmm.
Just because we had a question, and it might be a question that some other kids are asking right now as well. Well, one is Tosh says, yes, that's not fair. And then Spencer asks, well, how come they take their homes? Like, why did that? Why take their possessions?
It's a very complex question, but a lot of it had to do with because the Japanese Canadian people were forced out of their homes, it meant that there were a lot of vacancies and a lot of property that was being taken. People were stealing things. People were stealing things out of these homes, damaging these homes. And so it was the custodian of any properties. It was their responsibility as a government function to basically protect the homes and the property of Japanese Canadians, and that proved to be too difficult. There's a lot to the question, and that's probably the most general answer I can say. But we touch on that a bit in the game as well, okay. And there's other resources that can help flesh out that answer.
Right.
Jennifer, anything to add?
I just also wanted to point out that because of this, the Canadian government didn't want Japanese Canadians returning to the coast. They wanted them to disperse across the country, and not for a friendly reason. They didn't like that a lot of Japanese Canadians had created neighborhoods and created pockets of community in specific areas like Vancouver, Victoria, or other cities. So they wanted them to go all across Canada, which was not a decision that the Japanese Canadians were allowed to make for themselves. It was a forced decision. Mm-hmm. And we'll also we'll touch on that too in the game.
Great, thank you.
Great question. Let's start the game then.
All right, everyone. Welcome to Steveston in December 1941, a bustling fishing village located along the Fraser River near Vancouver. Your father, Tomokichi Mizukami, is a fisherman for BC Packers. Your mother, Reiko Mizukami, works at the Gulf of Georgia cannery where she packs salmon. Both are Issei, first-generation immigrants from Japan who came to Canada for a better life. You are a Nisei, a second-generation Japanese Canadian in Canada. Are we going to play as Midori, the sister, or Kenji, the brother?
Oh. Got some people saying Midori. Anyone else?
All right, let's play as
Let's
Midori.
go with Midori then.
You are a 17-year-old girl. You love taking photos with your special camera that your father bought you as a birthday present. After public school during the week and on Saturdays, you attend the Japanese language school in Steveston because your parents want you to be able to write letters in Japan to your grandparents in Japanese to your grandparents in Japan. On December 7th, 1941, you wake up and head down into the kitchen with your family. Do you turn on the radio or do you read the paper?
Paper?
Oh. While you are reading the New Canadian, your brother Kenji turns on the radio. There is breaking news. Pearl Harbor has been bombed. Prime Minister Mackenzie King is saying that Japan has treacherously attacked our allies and that Japan's actions are a threat to the defense and freedom of Canada. Your mother and father are talking in rapid Japanese. They struggle to speak English and you struggle to understand what they're saying. The next 2 days later, officials come and take your father's fishing boat. They say it's for the safety of Canada, but now your father is out of a job. A curfew from dusk to dawn goes up for all Japanese Canadians. The new year approaches. Christmas is quiet this year. All of Steveston is tense. Little by little, Japanese Canadian men are being let go or fired from their jobs. Your mother stops working at the cannery. A notice goes up asking for all radios, meaning you can no longer listen to hockey games or radio shows. In February 1942, Steveston community members asked for volunteers to go to road camps to prove their loyalty to Canada. Your dad wants to go because he thinks it will help protect your family. Do you, 1, think this is a good idea, or 2, tell him not to leave?
Not to leave?
Your father smiles at you and says, "Be good to your mother, look after your brother." He leaves anyways. He is sent to somewhere called Revelstoke. 1 month later. Women in Steveston want to make care packages for the Red Cross to send to Canadian soldiers overseas. Without your dad, your mom has taken on all the roles in the household. She looks tired. You want to support your family, but you also want to help the war effort. Will you help the war effort or support your family?
To support your family.
You head straight home after school every day to help your mom take care of the house. Kids at school start to bully you. Forward to March 1942. So this was the notice that actually did go up. An organization called the BC Security Commission is created by the federal government. It shall be the duty of the commission to plan, supervise, and direct the evacuation from the protected areas of British Columbia of all persons of the Japanese race. Notices go up telling Japanese Canadians they will be forcibly removed from anywhere within a 100-mile radius of the West Coast. You're confused by this because you were born in Canada and have never been to Japan. You are Canadian. One day. So here you get to make a big choice. One day a knock comes at your door. An RCMP officer informs your mother that you have 24 hours to vacate your property and go to Hastings Park. You can only take what you can pack. There are 3 suitcase options. Suitcase 1 has food for 1 week, clothes for 1 week, a winter coat, 2 blankets, sewing kit, some extra material. Suitcase 2 has crackers, hard candy, clothes for an extra day, 1 blanket, a book, and a sewing kit. Suitcase 3 has a kimono, a ceremonial doll, books, hairbrush, mirror, and family photos. So which suitcase are you going to choose? Suitcase 1, 2, or 3?
Lots of for 1.
Okay. Right before you go to leave your room, you see the camera that your father bought you. Cameras are banned for Japanese Canadians, but you want to take it with you. Do you smuggle the camera or leave the camera?
Take it.
You wrap the camera in a t-shirt and stuff it in the bottom of your suitcase. Your mom calls, "Hurry up," from the front door. You don't have time to say a proper goodbye to your home. You board the train in Steveston and leave your house behind. You've only ever known the smell of the Fraser River and you have no idea what's next. You board the train. Welcome to Hastings Park, a holding center for Japanese Canadians in the center of Vancouver. When you arrive, your brother Kenji is sent to the men's quarters, immediately separated from you and your mother. You and your mother are then moved to the Women and Children's Building, which was converted from a livestock pen. It still smells like animal feces and wet hay. You share a cattle stall with another mother and her 2 daughters. Sheets are the only privacy you have. Are you hungry enough to eat, or do you want to talk to the other girls in the stall?
Talk.
You learn the names of the 2 girls, Kimiko and Hide. They're from Salt Spring Island and have been in Hastings for 1 week. Their father protested and ended up in a prisoner of war camp in Northern Ontario. You will learn a few people are feeling sick from the food they ate at dinner. It was a gruel like porridge, super runny with diluted milk and a side of prunes. The bathroom is just filthy, smelly troughs that run through the stalls. The smell makes you feel worse. This is the first time you've ever heard of food poisoning. Next morning. Kimiko and Hide tell you about the makeshift hospital on the other side of the wall. It used to be where they held chickens. A fear of tuberculosis, an infectious disease that affects the lungs, is spreading in Hastings Park. Lately, you've been feeling sick, like you have a cold. An officer comes around telling some families to pack up and go on the train. You sneeze and the officer asks if you're sick. Do you lie and say it's allergies, or do you tell him the truth that you have a cold?
Truth.
The officer eyes you suspiciously and says, "You Japanese live in horrible conditions. It's no surprise you're all sick." The clinic. He takes you without hesitation to the clinic in Hastings Park. There are about 100 beds set inside the room, filled with straw ticks as mattresses. It is one big building with plywood screens for separation. You can hear patients coughing and children crying. Some have scarlet fever, chickenpox, and even tuberculosis. The nurses are understaffed and have limited medicine. You're here for a week. You stay for 1 week, worried about your mother alone without strong English skills, and now you haven't seen your brother in weeks. You get to go outside for 30 minutes, even though the guards aren't supposed to let you. There is talk in the clinic about where people will go after Hastings Park, and you hear many names and places. Everyone is uneasy. When you are well enough to return to the women's quarters, an officer tells you that it is your time to leave Hastings. Pack up and go to the train, he says. The platform. You're standing in line on the train platform with your mother when Kimiko and Hide find you. "We've been assigned to New Denver," they say, pointing to another line forming further away. But mother says this train is going to pop off. Their mother calls them and they give you a quick hug goodbye before they run over to their platform. You don't know what to do. The train conductor blows his whistle for everyone to board the train. You finally spot Kenji as he enters your view and he rushes to you and your mother. He says the officer told him you're all headed to pop off, but Kimiko and Hide are now waiting to go to New Denver. You don't have much time to decide, but you think the 3 of you could make it into the other line before they board. Do you stay in line or encourage your family to switch?
Switch.
After having switched lines, your family boards the train for New Denver, an internment camp on Slocan Lake. When you arrive, Kimiko and Hide call out to you, happy to see your familiar face. The BC Security Commission has set up housing for Japanese Canadians to live in an area of the town called the Orchard. There are still many tuberculosis patients who have been left behind in Hastings Park while they wait for the sanatorium to be built here. The locals will later call it the San. Remembering your time in the clinic at Hastings Park, you're glad you got healthy. You exit the train. After you walk from the train station with all of your belongings to the Orchard, a new official assigns you and your family to share a 2-bedroom shack with another family. It is one of the hastily constructed houses made from green wood. Inside, there is only a small kitchen in the middle, leaving very little space for you all. In the town, there are a few outhouses set up for the entire camp. It is nothing compared to your home in Steveston. Winter approaches. It is November and you feel cold. Thankfully, you have 2 blankets instead of 1. You also packed winter clothes. Is this enough for the winter, or do you wish you had more blankets? Your father gets paid a small wage for his work building highways with the road camp, but unfortunately, he can't afford to buy more blankets for you and your family. Fortunately, the BC Security Commission hands out 2 more blankets to each person for the winter. People who didn't get shacks have to live in tents, and by December, they collapse beneath heavy snowfalls. Even in your small shack, cracks in the walls let the cold inside, and each morning, your water bucket has a layer of frozen ice. Some people get sick, but you're warm enough to help out your mother and brother with the chores. You live this routine for the rest of the year. 1943. In the camp, people start to talk about an organization called the Office of the Custodian of Enemy Property, an institution that took over your house and belongings back in Steveston. Many of them say that their property was sold without their consent. This angers you, Hide, and Kimiko, and the 3 of you talk about protesting. They say they will protest, but with their father being sent to a prisoner of war camp, they decide to protest by writing a letter. Your mother says, "Shikaraganai," which you translate from Japanese into, "it can't be helped." But a part of you feels like this is wrong, that the government shouldn't sell your family house. Do you follow the girls and write a letter to the government, or do you listen to your mother?
Letter.
Weeks later, you receive a form letter from the custodian saying that there is nothing that can be done about your property, that selling it is a government policy during the war. Now, you realize there is no home to return to in Steveston. All your belongings are gone. You're relieved you chose to smuggle the camera with you when you left so that you still have something you cherish. Days go by. Your mother learns of an opportunity to go to a beet farm in southern Alberta so that your father can finally be reunited with you, letting your family be together again. She wants you to go, but this means you would have to leave Hide and Kimiko, the only friends you have in these uncertain times. People in the camps have created the only sense of community you had for you since you left Steveston. Do you go to the sugar beet farm or do you stay in the camp? You and your family board a train for southern Alberta. When you arrive, your father waves to you. You run and jump into his arms. He is much thinner than you remember, and the lines around his eyes are deep. His hands are still dark from the dirty work of building the highway. "I'm proud of you, Midori," he says. "You took care of the family. It has been 2 years since you've seen each other." Waiting. An official takes you to a building saying that you can't leave until a farmer comes to offer you work. They are going to separate you once again from your father and brother, and you want to protest. Do you stay calm or do you protest?
Protest.
Your father squeezes your hand and says, "We have to do as we're told. Stay calm, Midori." He then departs with Kenji to the other men's area. A week goes by, and then someone comes and calls for your family to go outside. The truck ride. A man comes up to you and nods, saying nothing other than, "You the Mizukamis? I'm your driver." You take your belongings and pack yourselves into the back of the truck. The man pulls out from the station and you jostle in the cab, dust kicking up from the tires and tickling your nose. You sneeze repeatedly. Soon you cover your eyes with your hands. The dusty air makes it hard to breathe. The farmer. The evening when the truck stops and the dust settles, there's a small chicken coop ahead. The man puts the truck in park and honks his horn. From up the road, a door opens and another man walks towards you. When all of you are out of the truck, the driver pulls away. The man walking towards you nods his head when he meets you, but he doesn't shake your father's hand. "I'm William Barker and you'll be in my employ." He points to the chicken coop and says, "You'll live there. We work Monday through Saturday with Sundays off." You look at the nice 2-story house up the road and you can see a woman and 2 children have come out to see you and your family. The house has windows with blue trim and a wraparound porch. It is a real home, like the one you had to leave behind in Steveston. The chicken coop only has a door. You want to cry, but your father just nods. Your new home. Inside the old chicken coop, there is a stove and 1 small window in the back. It is 1 room, not even the size of the shacks in the camps. Thick layers of dust coat everything, no matter how hard you and your mother clean. It's September now, so the weather is still moderate, but you anticipate the winter here will be grueling. Sugar beets. In the field, you do backbreaking work. The sun scorches the earth and the beets are hard vegetables, fighting you with every step. There are no trees to sit under and rest from the sun. The beets grow in rows upon rows so that from afar, you can just see Kenji's head. As it grows colder, lumps of earth stick to your gumboots, making it even harder to move. Weeks pass. The farmer pays your family very little for the hard work. Your father wants to buy supplies to make the chicken coop more homely, but he can't afford much on the meager salary. You learn of an opportunity to work as a nanny in one of the farmhouses up the road. It's an hour walk each way, but the pay would help your family. Do you apply for work or stay on the farm? Because the war is still on, your work on the sugar beet farm is deemed essential for the wartime effort. You learn that Japanese Canadians working on sugar beet farms in Alberta are producing the heaviest beet yield, supplying 65% of Alberta's sugar beet produce. Farmers don't want to lose this cheap labor force, so you are blocked from getting work elsewhere. Your skin chaps from the dye dusty air, and soon your hands develop hard calluses. Time passes in a haze. 1944. A survey comes to the farm asking Japanese Canadians if they wanted to stay in Canada after the war, but move out of BC and head east of the Rockies, or be sent to Japan. This would mean that your family could stay at the Alberta sugar beet farm or move further east. Your mother says you should go to Japan because the work on the farm is too hard on your parents, but you are not so sure about leaving the country. You were born in Canada and it's hard for you to speak Japanese. You've never been to Japan and it feels like an exile from your home. Do you want to stay in Canada or exile to Japan?
Stay in Canada.
Your family is wavering, but you are sure you will stay in Canada. Kenji and I were born here, you say. We are Canadian citizens and we should not have to leave our country. But Canada has done nothing for us, your father says. Look at how they treat us. You respond, but what will we do in Japan? Kenji and I can barely speak Japanese and the war will leave nothing for us there. It takes many arguments and discussions, but in the end, your father signs up with the whole family to stay in Canada. August 1945. On August 6th and 9th, 1945, the United States dropped 2 bombs on Japan, one on Hiroshima City and the other on the city of Nagasaki. Soon afterwards, Japan surrenders and the war is officially over. The news shocks your family and you are relieved that you did not register to leave Canada. Stories arrive of starvation in a war-ravaged Japan. Even though the war has ended, your family is not allowed to return to British Columbia. The government extends the War Measures Act, keeping you in Alberta and working on the farm. 1949. 4 years have passed and you cannot remember a life that did not revolve around farm work, the dry summer heat, the dust, and the aching cold winters. Even though you slowly fix up the chicken coop, it never feels like home. On April 1st, 1949, the federal government finally allows Japanese Canadians to move more freely in all of Canada, including British Columbia and the West Coast. Your parents are too old to rebuild their lives from scratch. You are now 25 and never finished high school because the war disrupted your education. There are not many opportunities for you, but your parents want to return to the coast, the only true home your family ever had. A few months later, your family decides to return to Steveston. The smell of the Fraser River has not changed. The town still smells of salmon, herring, and salt water. You walk by your old house, now occupied by a new family. A part of you wants to go up and knock on the door, but you hear a baby crying from inside, and you can't bring yourself to disrupt this new family. As your family tries to readjust to life back in Steveston, you start to look for work.
And that is the end of the game. It is not going to the end because, but we can show our last slide.
So to take away from this, 23,000 Japanese Canadians were forcibly removed from their homes, losing almost all of their belongings. Japanese Canadians are Canadian citizens, and no Japanese Canadians were ever found guilty of sabotage or being against the Canadian government. So it is up to all of Canada to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And thank you so much for playing.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, you two. That was really emotional. And there was a class, I think, from Steveston who said that they really enjoyed it and they just needed to go to lunch, but they're going to watch the recording of the end part later. It was, so if everyone is okay, we'll just hold on a couple more minutes. I know we're a little bit over a half an hour, but I know if anyone has any questions, I was really struck by those moments of just having like that. There's so many moments of you could do this, you could do that. If you do this, what are the consequences, or and when you're in a place where you don't have a home and everything is uprooted, I would just imagine those decisions would be even more difficult to make. But I was also really like those options of like smuggling the camera or protesting or writing a letter, or like that kind of agency within was also really inspiring. And I'm glad that everyone chose those options, though it must have been hard for sure. Just leave some space for questions from anyone who's, Tosh says the game was amazing. And also great job, Natsuki and Jennifer, from a few different people. Great, this is Kiara, great work on the presentation. Still so impactful, even having seen the game played before. And yeah. So how did this come about with the two of you in terms of creating? How did you decide that a game was a strategy you wanted to do to bring this story forward?
So Natsuki, myself, and one other team member who couldn't join us today, Nathaniel Hayes, created this game for a field school where we were working with actual elementary and high school teachers as well. And we wanted to really highlight the choices that were made. And Twine is a really great platform for focusing on how choices. Carolyn asked what happens in the game if you choose to take the kimono instead of practical items. Well, this is a case where that's a false choice, because in the game, the mother tells you to repack, and then you still only have those two choices between the suitcases. Natsuki, do you want to talk a bit about the suitcases and you know, the key moments of switching either to Pop Off or New Denver?
Yeah. There's some key choices there that really change the endings of the game, especially the ending of whether you decide to stay in Canada or be exiled to Japan. That actually is a choice that can potentially break up your family. If you go to Japan, if you choose to go be exiled to Japan, then your sibling will always choose the other option, and your sibling will always choose to stay in Canada because they are Canadian and you are Canadian. But it's a matter of staying with your family, or it's a matter of being able to be with your family to make that choice. If you're not in the sugar beet farm with your father, your family's not all together, and it makes it more difficult for your family to choose. And so, yeah, there's lots of different secrets, lots of differences depending on your choices. You noticed that the mention of smuggling the camera, that is something that I was able to program into the game, so it follows you, and I was able to mention it at the point of you all learning that all your things were sold back in Steveston. I'm able then in the game, the function, to make it so that it remembers whether or not you took your camera, or if you decide to leave it behind. And then otherwise, if you left it, there'd be a message saying, you regret leaving it because you didn't think that you lose it. You thought you'd be able to go back to it one day, that kind of thing. So we wanted to simulate that, really emphasize the fact that no one knew that they were gonna lose everything, right? If you were asked to pack your things and you weren't told where you were going or how long you'd be gone, or the fact that you would never be able to see these things again, all these things would impact what you took. So we wanted to kind of simulate that by not giving context of you'd be going somewhere cold in the winter, like the interior of BC. Even just the difference between taking suitcase 1 or 2, you have more blankets with suitcase 1. If you took suitcase 2, you would get sick because you didn't have enough blankets in the winter. So things like that. They're subtle, but there's a lot of differences if you wanted to play the game yourself.
And it's
and
also
if you
tempting.
get sick, oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if you do get sick, then you're not able to help your mother and brother with chores. You aren't able to be involved with Kimiko and Hide writing a letter of protest. And so all these choices they seem quite simple in the moment, but they have, positive or negative consequences later down the road. By no fault of the character's own, it's just sometimes that happened. And when we were building this game, all 3 of us, Natsuki, Nathaniel Hayes, and myself, were research assistants with the Landscapes of Injustice project. So we had a lot of access to oral histories. When we were on the field school, we were with part of a bus tour of Japanese Canadian elders, children of people who were interned. So those interactions really informed some of the choices we wanted to make, some of the stories. Like all of these stories, whether you end up exiled in Japan, separated from your whole family alone in Toronto, together on a sugar beet farm, all these options are real stories, real experiences families went through.
Yeah, and I really felt like at moments that was going to happen. Like at me as the character I was going to be left alone in the hospital part of Hastings Park or on the train platform, and if you really feel that vulnerability, and at every step of the way. So. I was also thinking that like the suitcases are really striking that question, because the second suitcase also has heart candy, and you might think like, yeah, I would want that in terms of it being something that I want right away. But yeah, there's all these choices that have lasting impact. So thank you so much, you two. And Nathan as well, the work that you put into creating this game that really helps us understand the history more, and it also helps us connect into the empathy as well. Like if you put yourself there, then it helps. For me, at least, it helps me understand and feel it. So we have a lot of comments. Just it was really fun and so interesting, and so thank you so much, Jennifer and Natsuki. Do either of you have any last words?
Just thank you for participating, and thank you for being here. Glad to see you're interested.
And likewise, thank you for playing, everyone.
Great. And I know a lot of classes and a lot of communities in the years to come will be playing this and having a similar kind of impactful experience. So thank you too. And thanks everyone for joining today. We'll see you next week. That's all.